Welcome to a brand episode of Two Please. I'm your host, Alvin.
And I'm your co host, Rohit. And today we're going to talk about probably one of the most quotable, the most rewatchable, and one of the most original movies to come out in the last 20, 30 years, at least in my opinion. And I know Abhin more or less feels the same. There's going to be a lot of quotes flying back and forth tonight, folks. Just giving you a heads up. It's one of those movies where, once you start quipping lines, it's really hard to stop. So, just putting that out there. The movie we're going to talk about is the 2008 movie Tropic Thunder. And we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about themes, memorable moments, behind the scenes stories, plot line, etc. But before we do that, let's start the show.
While filming a movie, three of Hollywood's biggest stars were kidnapped.
Were there some rewrites?
Now they'll have to stop acting and start fighting back.
Those dudes was trained soldiers.
And we trained actors.
Ben Stiller, Jack Black, Robert Downey Jr.
Hot damn.
Tropic Thunder.
Somebody close to you said, one more flop, it's over.
Somebody said they were close to me?
August 13th, rated R.
So, Tropic Thunder. Tropic Thunder, funnily enough, released 15 years ago. This is the 15th year anniversary of the film. And is directed by Ben Stiller, starring Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., Jay Baruchel, Jack Black, Brandon T. Jackson, Steve Coogan,
Steve Coogan.
Uh,
And of course,
Bill Hader.
yeah, sure. That's who I was referring to. Tom Cruise.
Yeah,
I mean, that
Yeah, and Matthew McConaughey. There's so much more. I think we probably forgotten somebody. Danny McBride. Danny McBride was definitely
Danny
on this,
McBride.
this
Very
film.
great early Danny
Nick
McBride.
Nick
Nick
Nolte.
Nolte. Yeah.
So many people. This is a film chock-a-block filled with stars, and
Yeah.
written by Ben Stiller and Justin Theroux and
Yeah.
Ethan Cohen. Now, if you know Justin Theroux from movies like Mulholland Drive, he's on The Leftovers,
Oh,
and
man.
was a film that came out in 2008, and it tells the story of a bunch of actors shooting a war epic in the middle of the Vietnamese jungle who unwittingly find themselves in the middle of this drug racket, or
Yeah, pretty much.
basically a cartel, like a Vietnamese drug cartel.
It's just such a brilliant premise, right? As an elevator pitch. It's just, we're going to make this meta movie about actors shooting, not realizing they're in a real war situation. That's it. Right off the bat, I'm
Yes,
like, cool, I'm in. Like,
whatever. Yeah, it is. And the funny thing is, okay, actually, I think this is the right time to get into first impression. So let's jump into that. When I first watched this movie, I had no idea what it was about.
same.
I saw like I saw like really muscly dudes in an action film, and I assumed, okay, there must be a comedic element to it. Oh, let's say you take the buddy cop genre and you throw it into this wartime kind of film, is what I was expecting. What I got, on the other hand, was extremely surprising. Now, this film's legacy has been uh, controversial, to say the least. I think it is
Yeah.
to our generation what Blazing Saddles was to the 70s. It's a film that takes risks, toes the line multiple times, while performing a satirical take on the state of modern filmmaking, especially Hollywood filmmaking. It opens with, and I think this is a moment for the memorable moments section. It opens with, in a certain way, which really confused me. I was like, well, I don't know what I'm watching. And then I proceeded to have the most hilarious 90 minutes of my life, that up until that time that I could remember. It is a movie that is very meta. It's very sharply written, and it has blends all genres of comedy very well. Primarily, like Ben Stiller is a terrific writer. He manages the blend of slapstick meets satire very, very well, and this film is a true testament to it. Only bolstered by his acting performances.
I agree. I think largely I had the same first impression. In fact, I think I may have watched this movie post Iron Man. I'd probably seen Iron Man first,
Mhm.
and that was my first proper introduction to Robert Downey Jr. So that image had sort of set in my mind, and then I put this movie in, and like you said, the first three 4 minutes of the movie, I'm like, okay, what is happening? Is this part of the movie? Not part? Like, what am I watching? And then the movie kicks in. It takes a good 5 to 10 minutes for you to understand what the core premise is. But once you do, again, like you said, probably the most belly laughs I've had in like a 90-minute time, right? There
Yeah.
are quotes where, and because I was watching this on my laptop, I could pause, rewind, and just, go 10 seconds back,
Mhm.
listen to something again, and just keep laughing. Probably the 90-minute extended to 2 hours purely because I was pausing and like going, like, did he just say that? Or did he just do that? So, unexpected joy to have gone into this movie blind. Again, one of these movies,
Mhm.
but I don't know, in this case, even if you watch the trailer, I'm sure even the trailer is a little bit misleading on purpose, right? The idea is to
Yes.
make you expect a certain form of movie and then just hit you with something entirely different. So, again, similar. I think it is because of the subversion of the movie that my first impression of it is very strong. It is very vivid in my
Mhm.
memory, and I've gone back to watching this movie so many times. Like I said, it's super rewatchable. It's one of those movies where even if you watch the same joke for the 10th, 20th, 30th time, it still lands, it still makes you laugh. It doesn't feel stale. It has its fair share of controversies, which we'll get into. But
Mhm.
again, I feel comedy should get a bit of leeway, right? This is a medium through which society pushes its boundaries. Uh, if not for if it's not allowed to do that, then how do we bring taboo discussions to light?
Yes.
The movie does things which I don't think will fly today, and I think not for better or worse. It is for worse that we are in a time and place where this sort of movie can't get made. This sort of movie should always have its place, should always have people in its corner. But it is what it is. But I'm glad, in that moment in time, Ben Stiller was able to put this script together. Justin Theroux, get these super talented bunch of actors to buy into this crazy idea, right? And all of them pull it off. Everyone is on point, on their A game, and it just, I don't know, man. The end product is one of those movies when I just think about it, I start laughing.
It's just one of, like, there are so many moments, and
Yeah.
through the years different moments have hit differently. Like, I can tell you what, and we'll get to the memorable moments. I can tell you what was the moment in the film that I absolutely burst out laughing at, and what were the moments that a couple of years later down I hadn't even noticed, and then I clocked on after having like watched a few more films, or like understood how the industry works. And like there's so much to get into, so let's just quickly jump into the BTS. I feel
Right.
today's episode is going to be fairly short, so it's going to be quite zippy. So let's jump into the BTS. The weird bit of trivia that I learned about this film is that Ben Stiller conceptualized it while working on Empire of the Sun,
Yeah.
which was in 1987, a full 20 years before the film was made. So you could tell that Ben Stiller was on set of The Empire of the Sun, was watching a young Christian Bale uh, like blossom into a method actor, watching Steven Spielberg, like, it's a Spielberg film, right? Empire of the Sun
Yeah. Yeah.
is, yeah, it's so, watching a bunch of actors being weird and just thinking of this great script idea, and then he finally got it greenlit 20 odd years later, and it became the movie that it is. Tom Cruise was initially supposed to come in as the agent, the character Matthew McConaughey
Matthew
plays.
McConaughey. Hmm.
But Tom Cruise instead suggested that he wanted to be a really over the top studio head. So they wrote that part for him. And he said, I want two things. I want to wear a bald cap and I want to have big arms.
And I want to
And
dance.
Said, I want to have fat hands and I want to dance. And he looked at me, he was like, what? What? And I remember Ben, I said, no, man. I said, I want fat hands and I'm going to dance.
I think a certain magazine got pictures of him on set and they're about to publish it, and his lawyers threatened to sue them. So they had to pull the pictures down because they wanted this to be a real surprise for the audience. I think even to this day, I watch a lot of people reacting to this film on YouTube, and there's a small community of them that don't realize that Tom Cruise is in the movie up until the end credits. Like, there are certain people who are able to crack it by the sound of his voice because he has that very distinct voice.
He may be able to see me, but I can't see him.
Is that?
Yes.
No. No, it is not. Woo!
Loud and clear.
I had no idea.
you.
This film is super meta. I think there are a bunch of films it references, primarily the big one being Apocalypse Now,
And
which
Platoon.
is
And Platoon.
and Platoon,
Which
and
is the
even Deer
other
Hunter
thing,
to
and Deer Hunter. The other thing about what inspired Ben Stiller, the one other thing I had read was he was hanging around with a lot of the folks who were in Platoon, and they were
Mhm.
talking about how they had to do a boot camp before shooting to get into the psyche of their characters, and they were talking about how it really felt like they were there, they were in the war, and Ben Stiller was sitting there listening to them, going, "What nonsense, guys! We're all actors at the end of the day. Let's not act like we're soldiers and let's not big ourselves up." And I think that sentiment is at the heart of Tropic Thunder as well. It carries on into the script where these actors want to pretend like they're in the shit, but these are pampered folks who are used to their vanity vans, and Jack Black's character used to his cocktail of drugs and stuff like that. So when they're actually put into the into the shit or into the element, you realize how flimsy that facade of bravado is. So
Yeah.
again, that sentiment also plays comes from Platoon, and so yeah, Apocalypse Now, towards the end of the movie is the most obvious references to Kurds, and there's Platoon, and there's Deer Hunter. Basically, all of these movies that are set in and around the Vietnam War.
And of course, it pokes fun at mental illness films as well. Like I don't remember a lot of movies that came out after this that were that were using those kind of films as Oscar bait. Like if you go back, let's say between the 90s and the early 2000s, specifically I Am Sam. I think for everyone, the movie I Am Sam stands out, which is with the hilariously over the top Sean Penn. And I feel like with the way this movie pokes fun at certain Hollywood tropes, it almost killed that genre of film completely. Yes, you've got Peanut Butter Falcon, but those are actually actors who are challenged, who are
Mm.
suffering from kind of syndromes. So you're bringing their stories to life, as opposed to whatever performative Oscar bait nonsense was going on in the mid 2000s and the early 90s.
Yeah,
So
I think the fact that Tropic Thunder, I Am Sam sort of killed the genre, but it could have undergone a revival. But Tropic Thunder's calling out of it now means that the self awareness and the cognizance of the absurdity of those kind of films is out there. So I don't think that genre can make a comeback. Tropic Thunder, if I Am Sam killed it, Tropic Thunder put the last nail in the coffin.
moving on from that, we have Robert Downey Jr.'s character. Now, when Robert Downey Jr. first read the character, he's said that this is probably the dumbest character I've ever read. But Ben Stiller is like, but you see what I'm trying to do, and he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And even I think it's on the Joe Rogan podcast where Robert Downey Jr. He talks about how his mother came to him and said, "Bobby, this is a bad idea. Like I have a bad feeling about this." And he's like, "Don't worry, ma, I've got this." And I can understand his mother's like grievances, because Robert Downey Jr. has famously had a very troubled career, and it's
Yeah.
2008, like the dawn of the Renaissance. I just came up with that. So Iron Man is out, is just hit theaters, and he's everywhere. And it's like his stock is slowly beginning to rise again. And I can tell how his mother must have had the apprehensions that, oh my god, he's going to throw it all away again for this risky character.
Yeah.
But the way Robert Downey Jr. portrays the character of Kirk Lazarus, who plays this dude called Lincoln Osiris, is just perfection. I think Kirk Lazarus, according to Ben Stiller, is modeled on three people. It's modeled on Daniel Day-Lewis, it's modeled on Russell Crowe, and on Colin Farrell. This bad boy method actor dude who is a bit of a ruffian, always gets into trouble, throws himself into roles, and is very controversial. So I think that's who they blaze Kirk Lazarus off. And Downey got nominated for this. So this was the year 2008. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Which is never
But
happening again, right? Actors in blackface are
yeah,
never getting nominated again.
yeah.
One and
Even
done.
in the even in the context of the film, right? Because this is not a serious blackface portrayal. Like we have seen serious
Yes.
misrepresentations of races in the past. The one being, I think, going so far as back as to the early 40s, late 30s,
No,
with Al
Al Johnson,
Johnson.
right? In 1927, the
Yes,
jazz singer.
27. Okay, yeah. So going as far back as that, where he's famously, like, Al Johnson was famously a Hungarian guy or a Latvian guy. One of, like, he was from Eastern Europe,
He's not black.
and he was definitely not black. And the man was doing blackface on film and was being applauded for it.
I think what makes
Then
the
you,
blackface in this not disingenuous is that it's very self-aware, right? It is
yeah,
poking fun at the absurdity of it. It's not trying to pass it off as something that's natural or acceptable, which it is self-aware, so it is fine. You sort of get a pass because of it.
I don't think anyone watching this film takes it seriously, because it's very clearly meant to be a satirical take. And I understand
Yeah,
people's perceptions that, okay, it may be a satirical take, but it's a take regardless. And while doing so, you kind of still, like, propagate the idea. But I am of the opinion that, like, the thing with comedy generally, the thing with comedy is that it should be able to highlight issues in society and poke fun of them without consequence of backlash. And that's where I come from. Yes, there are certain times where you could step over the line and you could, um, you know, take it over the top. But I don't think this role is guilty of that.
absolutely. I mean, if we're being politically correct with comedy, then what's left, right? Because
Mm.
comedy and discomfort have a big overlap. A lot of, I
Yeah.
mean, when you're uncomfortable, one of our primary reactions, our instinctual reactions, is to laugh. So there is, at a very base, lizard brain level, there is something common to the two of them. So
Mm.
great comedy comes at the edge of what's acceptable. But yeah, I think that's about the making of the movie, the actors that were involved. Let me do a quick run through of the plot, and then we can get into the memorable moments and the broad themes. So, like we said at the outset, this is a movie about a bunch of actors who are brought in to do this prestige project, which is an adaptation of a book written by Nick Nolte's character, whose name is Four Leaf. Four Leaf, right? His
Yes.
nickname is Four
Mm.
Leaf. Who his character claims to be to have been a Vietnam War vet, and he's written his autobiography, which is getting adapted into this big tentpole Hollywood project. Got a bunch of big stars, and the movie also sets context right off the bat with showing fake trailers of the movies these actors have been in. So in Ben Stiller, you have this prototypical action movie star, in the mold of a Stallone or an Arnold. In Kirk Lazarus, like you mentioned, you have this super involved, rather I would say annoyingly involved method actor in the mold of, if you were to take a Daniel Day-Lewis to its logical extreme. Then you have Jack Black, who is essentially playing, I would say, a mix of late Eddie Murphy and Mike Myers. Very
Mhm.
lowbrow physical comedy sort of star. Jay Baruchel is this nobody who is sort of getting his first break. Brandon T. Johnson plays Al Pacino,
Hmm.
who is probably like a proto Justin Timberlake, I would say, this musical star who's transitioning to movies, and
Ice Cube is what I was thinking.
Ice Cube is a better example.
Hmm.
So yeah, because Timberlake has some semblance of talent in front of the camera. Ice Cube, you're just like, what is he doing in movies, right? So Al Pacino is a good example of that. So it sets the context, and you have these disparate bunch of characters who are in the jungles of Vietnam to shoot a movie. And initially it's like they're all too self-involved, things aren't moving. So Nick Nolte's character tells the director, played by an amazing Steve Coogan, that you need to put them in the real shit, get into the field with them, capture the raw emotion. And in the pursuit of doing that, unbeknownst to the actors, they stumble upon, like Abhin mentioned, the Golden Triangle territory, which is held by one of these gangs called Flaming Dragon. And the rest of the movie is just these guys trying to play out the script, which they continue to believe for a disturbing amount of time. That they're still being shot and they're still performing. So there's a lot of performative behavior from them, which to the people of Flaming Dragon who are who probably feel these guys are intruders, and they're like, "What the fuck is happening?" Right? Over time, obviously, they realize there's something more afoot, and then they kind of get more directly entangled with Flaming Dragon, and that has repercussions with the studio as well, which is where Tom Cruise and Matthew McConaughey get involved. Things happen. Ben Stiller's character, who, despite being an action star, in his heart of hearts wants to have some more dramatic heft, to wants to add that to his repertoire, finds an unlikely audience in members of Flaming Dragon, and then he needs to be rescued, which plays out, and the movie ends with this ridiculous pivot that they do, making a movie out of this bizarre experience that they've had, and surprisingly somehow there's a happy ending to it. So while I've
Yeah,
described the plot, you really can't, a description can't do it justice, because the devil is in the details in this movie, right? The humor is in the screenplay a lot more so than the script.
yeah. I feel like if you now is, I think we've kind of spoken about the film in a fairly non-spoilerish context. I think this. I mean, if you want to go in blind, I'm sorry, it's too late. So if you haven't watched the film, I highly recommend that you do and come back. This episode will be there for you, because now we're about to delve into like full-blown spoiler territory.
Yeah.
Because how can we not? Like, this film is going to, like, this is the chunk of the meat and bones.
I honestly don't know
Potatoes of
how
the
we're
episode.
doing
Yeah,
memorable moments, because
yeah,
for me the
because it's going
memorable
to be
moment is the entire film. So
that was literally the message I got from Rohit. I said Tropic Thunder. He said cool. Then he sent me like a list of themes, and then he sent me memorable moments. The entire film. So it was just. I was like, yeah, I can't even argue with that. But to our best, we will try and condense it as
we
much as
will.
possible. So anyway, here's your warning. It's about to go into memorable moments. Here we go. All right, memorable moment number one: the opening
The
part of this
trailers.
film. The trailer. I mean, you can't talk about Tropic Thunder and not talk about the three trailers that play, because I watched this at home. I don't think we had a theatrical release for it, and if we did,
Yeah,
there wasn't enough buzz around it, especially in Indian cinemas at the time. You were, I think,
yeah,
both in high school, 2008, yeah, definitely in high school.
yeah.
So we definitely watched it on DVDs or VCDs, whatever. My God, VCDs! Look how we're dating ourselves. So at the time, so. The three trailers it opens up with, the first being Scorcher 6, which is this Terminator like franchise,
I would
which
say
is
more
set in this.
Rambo, no? Like,
Yeah, I
innumerable
definitely. Yeah,
installments, guy wearing
exactly.
camo, bare arms.
Yeah, and then it's set in like this post it's set in this post-apocalyptic world where like it's just the heat is everywhere. But then Scorcher 6 flips the tropes, and it's
The
icy
Ice
and
Age.
wintry. Yeah, and it
And they
cuts
have
to
the typical trailer voice, in a world.
yeah,
It's like, Scotch 6, here we are
yeah.
again. Again. What is happening?
And he's did it 6 more
Four
times.
times.
And then it cuts to Ben Stiller as Doug Speedman, who obviously has to quip. So he says, "Who will let the fridge open?" And then you have Scotches. So I'm already confused. I'm like, huh? And then you have the clumps, which is like this take on Nutty Professor, is what I would assume. Uh,
I
Starring
thought
Jeff
more Norbit, no?
Portnoy.
Like Obi's
No,
character
yeah,
is
not
Norbit.
Norbit. Yeah, meets Nutty Professor is what I thought.
Yeah.
And again, very lowbrow fart humor, um, like you're the lowest hanging fruit possible, starring a dude named Jeff Portnoy. At this point, I've kind of clocked, and I'm like, okay, fine. So this is clearly like a meta take, and I love it.
Yeah.
But whatever, the Jeff Portnoy trailer is, you're not laughing at it as much as you do in the following trailer.
Yeah. I would say the Jeff Portnoy movie trailer is the weakest of the three, but what follows, Satan's Alley, starring Kirk Lazarus, is
You know that movie
they should
exists.
make it. It is the funniest. What do you
The
mean?
movie exists. But it's not called Satan's Alley. So in 2019, 2020, not 2021, I would say, Paul Verhoeven, who is famous for a bunch of extremely intelligent, like not intelligent would be wrong, extremely famous films. Because if I say intelligent, I have to
Yeah.
talk about Showgirls. So let's say, like some of the most classic films of all time, directed a movie, a French movie called Benedetta, which is this period piece
Oh yeah.
set in I'd say the 15th century, and it's a true story. Is from what I know, it's about these two nuns who fall in love with each other, and one of the nuns is supposed to be seeing visions of Christ, and so she becomes this holy figure. And of course, their love is unpure, and it's obviously set in a time where stuff like that is frowned upon. So the Reddit thread for Benedetta is like, "What do you think of the film?" And the first comment is Satan's Alley, winner of the Crying Monkey Award
At the
at the
Beijing Film
Beijing
Festival.
Film Festival. So
And five-time Academy Award winner Kirk Lazarus, MTV Best Kiss Award winner Toby Maguire. Like, what the fuck?
and of course, set to the tune of "Sadness" or "Sadness" by Enigma. Enigma's
Like,
that's the song playing in the back.
that trailer is just perfection. I wouldn't change a single thing about it.
And that's where and then the movie starts. And
And
then
literally,
you
by the
have
time the credits start, I'm like, fuck yes, I am in. Whatever this is, I am in.
and it just gets better. Like you have this huge action sequence that takes place. And I'm still thinking, okay, this is like, what is this? Because now, I mean, I guess this is like a movie about movies, and you have Jay Baruchel's character. I think he plays a dude named Kevin Sandersky. Now,
Yeah.
for the longest time, I thought, and I probably am wrong about this, but this is my assumption. I assume Jay Baruchel's character was like a tribute to Shane Black in Predator, where
Hmm.
Shane Black was basically, because he kind of looks like Shane Black in Predator, this
The
lanky
nerdy
dude, and
character.
yeah, the nerdy character with glasses in a group filled of dudes with these huge ass muscles.
He's in a
And I
testosterone
thought
shop.
exactly, and I just thought he was Shane Black. I thought he's someone who'd worked on the film as a writer, and because they needed another guy, they just kind of cast him. So Shane Black was that dude for Predator. So, but I think that's not the case. That it's just some random, like a newcomer that they've pulled into the film. So they're all in the middle of this intense war sequence, and that's where Doug Speedman's character comes running through through a field, and he's getting shot multiple times, and he's still not dying. I was like, okay, so clearly, like this is a film sequence. And then he kind of someone tries to torpedo or rather like they try to shoot a missile at the helicopter, and he jumps and he catches it with his hands, so his hands are like rubbery. And then there's this really intense sequence between Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Lincoln Osiris as he's called now in the film, and Doug Speedman's character, and they're having this really emotional moment where RDJ is spitting on him, and then it cuts, and then you look around and you see that this whole thing is a big facade, and then the two actors throw a bit of a tantrum, and then that leads the director to lose his shit because he's an inexperienced director, incapable of handling egos, which then sets off a chain of events
Yeah.
leading to Danny McBride blowing up half the fucking strip.
Mother Nature just pissed her pantsuit.
That entire sequence with Jack Black hanging off the helicopter as the explosions are going off behind them is just hilarious. And the immediate line, I think there's a shout out to Maria Menounos, who kind of is in this film for like a minute, but more or less steals, like, has some of the best jokes in the film, because she's like, oh, this is a film that's 5 days into schedule. 5 days into shooting is 1 month behind schedule. I just burst out laughing. And yeah, but we'll get to that bit because I feel Marina Menounos has a crowning glory achievement coming through. But what did you think of the first sequence in the film?
That was again a great setup, right? First 5 minutes sets up the tour of the movie and what to expect. I think the next memorable moment for me is the video call they have with Les Grossman, where Les is like, he looks around and he's like, you're the director. He's like, who's the key grip? Come here. So he's looking for the guy who has the strongest hands.
Strongest hand,
Punch
yeah.
him in the face really hard, and then he tears Steve Cougar a new one. He's like, "I'm gonna have my hand so up your ass, or what? So up your behind that every time you have a thought, it's got to tiptoe past my wedding ring." I'm like, who wrote this?
And who thought? And if anyone had this on like a bingo card, that Tom Cruise would say a line like that, like I mean, props to you, because you would never ever in your life expect Tom Cruise to be this dude.
Yeah, it is
It's
just insane.
But yeah, I think we skipped over the Maria Menounos bit because she's talking about this on, I think, Access Hollywood or something, and they're talking about Doug Speedman's career now.
Oh yeah.
So like Doug Speedman really needs this because I think the year prior he swung for the fences and did a movie called Simple Jack, and now Simple Jack has been on the pod of you. I think it's on the There Would Be Blood episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's get this out of the way.
But anyway, so it's this super over the top, like Oscar bait
I mean,
film on autism. And he has this stutter where he kind of stutters over his M's. And I think he says, "I have a good brain," and she says, and his wife, that's Christine Taylor, that's Ben Stiller's wife in the movie, is actually in the film, and you have a fine brain, Jack. And he says, "You make me happy." And Maria Menounos follows that up with saying,
Now the question is, can Speedman make audiences happy in what's being called the most expensive
Right
war
back.
movie never made?
perfectly delivered.
there's that, and there's one more line. I think one other reporter says, "You something. People used to now you don't have as many people who love you or something." And then Doug Speedman reaction. Someone said they love me.
Yeah,
Wow.
Tyra Banks. Tyra Banks is on the he's on the Tyra show.
Hilarious,
So
hilarious. But okay, to get it out of the way. So what happened was this was sometime in I think 2009, 10 when we were all at a quiz somewhere. Me, Abhin, and a bunch of other friends. That day, I had not combed my hair, and my hair has a natural tendency to come down like this. Right, this is how it sits if I don't do anything about it. And apparently that day, my hair was a bit foppish. So one of our friends were like, "Hey, Macha, you look like Simple Jack, da." And these motherfuckers have called me Simple Jack for the last 12 years. I have grown my
there's a
hair, I've
poster.
parted my hair, I've gelled my hair. There's a fucking poster that's done the rounds.
I need to find this poster because I don't know who made it. It was me.
Bastard.
I need to find it because oh dude, it was hilarious. But anyway, Rohit has outgrown the Simple Jack face. He had the
He's
hairline, and
done.
it
Guys,
was
I'm shredded now. I'm not, but still.
anyway, that's a bit of a
But yeah,
pod
I'm
trivia.
glad we addressed it out of the way for our friends who might be listening to the pause. There, I've
Mm.
addressed it. Let's move on.
Okay,
I think
done.
the next moment I want to talk about is when Nick Nolte says yes, send them out into the shit, and Steve Coogan goes along with the actors into the jungle, and unknowingly steps on this mine and just blasts. Like while I'm watching the movie, I was like, wait, did that guy just die? And then Robert Downey Jr. or Lincoln Osiris goes to the guy and he's like, this guy is dead. They're like, no, it's not part of the movie. They're like, ain't no motherfucking movie. This guy's dead.
Yo, asshole! This motherfucker's dead. Ain't no Chris Angel mind freak, David Blaine trapdoor horse shit jumping off here.
Like, what is happening?
And then Ben Stiller picks up the head, which is clearly a prop head, and he
Yeah.
proceeds to eat it, saying, "It's just corn syrup, like just corn syrup." Very disgusting moment. And this is the time where the Flaming Dragon group has like a scouting troop, and so
Yeah.
they're watching this from within the jungle, and
And
they're
they
seeing
must
like
be
these
like,
dudes,
who are these hardcore motherfuckers eating their friend's head?
and they're like, they have no fear of death. And then
No, which leads me to my next favorite moment, right? Which is when they start shooting from the tree line. Lincoln Osiris is like, "Hey, somebody's actively shooting at us. We need to get cover." Ben's like, "No, this is all part of the effects. We need to, he's trying to trick us into realism, and we need to play our parts." And then he goes, right towards the tree line. This was the moment. The first time I watched, I laughed the hardest, right? So Ben Stiller gets down on one knee and he does this cinematic like he just shoots the gun around.
yeah,
He's like, "Yeah, get some." I'm like, what? And I'm just imagining how the Flaming Dragon guys are looking at this. Like, what the fuck is happening? This guy is like doing some performative. gun action. Like, it's
But
hilarious.
then that's also weirdly in sync because I think that's the time where uh, Danny McBride's character has kind of set up C4 charges all across the jungle, and
Yeah.
that goes
So
off,
Ben Stiller throws a
and which
grenade, and
yeah,
which is
right,
a fake grenade, but the actual C4 goes off.
yeah,
So
A- and
eh,
so Flaming Dragon are fully convinced that there's some military troop that's out there hunting them.
yeah. Oh my god.
And as these
Yes.
actors go into the jungle, they're uh, they're more hopelessly lost, no? So,
Yeah.
and in the middle of that, you have Brandon T. Jackson's character promoting uh, Booty Sweat. I think that's his drink. Oh, we
Booty
forgot to
sweat.
mention Booty Sweat entirely. Booty Sweat is the commercial that plays before all of these. Yeah, so
Correct.
Booty Sweat and some nuts. What Buster Nut? Yeah, Buster
Busting
Nut
that.
and Booty Sweat. Yeah, and he's like promoting Booty Sweat as he's walking through the jungle, and it's very clearly becomes open to them that they're not that they're lost.
Yeah. So there's this whole bit about how both Ben Stiller and Robert Downey Jr. try to influence Kevin, saying, "Hey, you want to be on my side, right?" RDJ's character's like, "We're clearly not in the movie. We need to get the fuck back to civilization." And Ben Stiller's character is trying to convince him, saying, "Hey, let's keep going. We're clearly being recorded, and all of this is part of the movie." And they both basically, like, this whole thing takes place over a pee break, which again is it's a hilarious scene. And after some point, it becomes more clearer and clearer to the rest of the group that they're seriously lost. So RDJ decides to take matters into his own hands, goes and talks Ben Stiller's character up, saying, "Hey man, you look really shredded. What diet are you doing?" He distracts him, takes the map out of his hands, and then it sort of confirms that they're way off base. And now they're like, okay, we need to find our way back. Which is when I think, is this around the time when that there's a couple of interactions between Al Pacino and Lincoln Osiris, where Brandon T.
Yeah,
Jackson's character is essentially calling out the fact that you might say what you want, but dude, at the end of the day, you're an Australian playing a black guy, which is super problematic. And he keeps calling
I
Lincoln
think there's
Osiris
a
Kangaroo Jack.
yeah. I think that there's a line where he talks about there's there's one good part for a black guy, and they've given it to an
To
Australian cop.
Crocodile Dundee, and suddenly the camera zooms in. It's like this dolly zoom on Lincoln Rice's face, like, uh, he's like, what do you
He's
say?
he's
Careful, careful, what do you say? And then he's like,
he's the national treasure.
yeah, he's a national treasure. He's like, I want to put another shrimp on your Barbie. The dingo eats your baby. And then Lincoln Osiris is like, that really happened? You about to cross some lines, man.
And then
And then,
no, but even before that, I think even before that, he says uh, where, where I think someone one of the actors makes a throwaway comment saying, "You people just don't get it."
I don't believe you people.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
that and
And then the scene you're about to talk about.
yeah, the scene, which is, I think, my favorite, like, Robert Downey Jr. moment, right? Just 5 seconds of sheer brilliance, which is when Vanity Jackson is saying, "This koala as the N word,
Yeah,
this koala
yeah,
as N," and immediately RDJ, or Lincoln Osiris, slaps him.
slaps him.
The guy tries to punch him back. He holds the punch, pulls him back, and then he looks at him for 400 years. That word has kept us down. I'm like, what the fuck?
For 400 years, that word has kept us down.
What the fuck?
And when I saw this the first time, I started clapping. I was like, "Oh, dude, you have such a Hollywood thing, right? You have these guys who pretend to be who they're really not, and you have taken it to the max extreme, and delivered a moment so perfect every single time I watch it. And I watched that scene an insane amount of times. Every time I watch it, I start laughing.
Yeah.
It's so well done.
Uh, and there's one more jibe that Lincoln Osiris throws at Al Pacino, which is later on in the film when. So throughout the course of the shooting, Jack Black has got a batch of cocaine with him because he's an addict,
Hmm.
and at one point this bat comes in and steals his cocaine and ends up him taking all of it in. There's also a moment in between when Jack Black tries to catch the bat and bite its head off, which is just a minute of sheer insanity. I'm like, seriously, what the fuck is happening, right? And then he starts withdrawing. He starts getting withdrawal symptoms. He wants to drink that river water. And Lincoln Osiris says, "Yeah, why don't we give him Al Pacino's Alpa's ass water, like a booty sweat ass water."
Yeah, get him chugging on some of Alpha's ass water. That'll bring him around. It's a cure-all.
I was like, who wrote the lines, man? Who wrote these lines? Around that scene, again, the other hilarious gag in the movie later on is Jack Black's withdrawal symptoms, right? So he starts going more and more off the rails. So they tie him to a tree. And he's like, hey, Kevin, give me those drugs. Or you have some drugs? He's like, no. Your mother was a cantankerous whore. Hey, yeah, you remember a minute ago when I said your mother was a cantankerous whore? I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean that. And then he's like, you give me some drugs, man. I'll suck your dick. I'll work. I'll walk the
No, yeah,
shaft.
but this
I'll
this
crank
happens after.
and I'll
This
drink the
happens.
gravy.
Like I remember this scene because the scene happens right after Brandon T. They ask him if there's somebody waiting back for him,
Oh yeah.
and he's like, and he's like, oh dude, yeah, he's like, yeah, who? His name's Lance. And they're like, Lance? It's like, no, I said Nance. I didn't say Lance. You definitely said Lance. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, it's fine. It's okay for all of us to be gay. One of the first few films in the 2000s that didn't poke fun at people for being gay. It
Yeah.
was like, okay, we accept it. And then, of course, the joke about how Jack Black's character is like, dude, like, I'll suck your dick.
I forget the exact line, but he said, "I'll walk the shaft. I'll crank to this thing, and I'll drink the gravy." It's just hilarious.
And in
And
the
even
middle of
that
all of
part where
this,
he talks about Lance and Nance, there's another amazing RDJ line. He's like, "Were you thinking about Lance? Or were you thinking about Nance when you had your what is that? Your nuts on his forehead or something?" I forget the exact line, but even that line, there's some amazing throwaway lines in the movie which they don't even draw attention to it, but on repeated viewings, you're just like, "Fuck!" They actually like, I missed this line.
there's so much. Like I feel like we before all of this even happens, there's that moment where Ben Stiller's character stumbles upon a panda. He kills a panda.
He calls Matthew McConaughey, Rick, I've killed the thing I love the most. What, a whore? That's fine, we can figure it. No, I've killed a panda. Amanda? Man, why are you telling me her name? It's fine, she's probably dead already. Oh, man.
And then he stumbles on, then he gets captured by the Flaming Dragon group, and who's led by like this 13-year-old boy called Tran, and who
Yeah.
starts whipping him. He still thinks he's acting, and as he's whipping him, Ben Stiller's Simple Jack stutter comes to the fray. And
Yeah.
it turns out that these guys don't get a lot of movies, and the only movie they've seen and they've really loved is Simple Jack in a long time because I. And so it turns out, and he's like, okay, so you need to, and then they decide to make Ben Stiller perform Simple Jack for the camp.
Hey, we also forgot about
What?
the interaction between Lincoln Osiris and Tug Speedman when they're walking and talking about Simple
Oh,
Jack.
right, yeah.
And Lincoln Osiris is like, you really got into the character, didn't you? And then Doug Speedman is like,
there were times when I was doing Jack that I actually felt retarded, like really retarded.
and then Lincoln Osiris is like, yeah, like an idiot, an absolute moron, stupid. And then Doug Speedman is like, yeah, while I was shooting the scene. He's like, yeah, sure. And then he gives him the whole spiel about you shouldn't have gone too retarded. He gives examples like Forrest Gump. Sure, he had a mental deficiency, but he won at ping pong. He opened a business. Blah blah blah. What is that? Mentally, this thing, sure, but not retarded. What is the other example he gave? Rain Man. Sure, he had a mental issue, but he could count cards. He was great at maths. I mean, this is not retarded. I am Sam. That's where they actually call I am Sam out specifically as
Yeah.
a very egregious example of a bad trope in this space. And then that entire scene is just it is hilarious, but it's also a very intelligent meta commentary. That scene
Yes,
has a lot of depth to it beyond just the humor.
because I think even he talks about it, right? He talks about how he spent time with specially challenged children, with people to get into the character of the role, and then they talk about how it almost refers to the part of where actors can tend to go overboard with performances like this. And this is a throwback to one of our previous episodes where Jared Leto uh, played a blind dude in Blade Runner, and he had to be led around set because he was wearing like opaque contact lenses, which Rohit famously hates.
Yeah, I mean, see, I shit on Jared Leto a lot, justifiably so in my mind. That said, one of his performances is in my top performances of all time, which is his performance in Dallas Buyers Club. So if we ever do
Mm.
an episode on Dallas Buyers Club, you'll hear me sing praises of Jared Leto in that. But apart from that, he's a massive dickhead. Having answered that bit, so yeah, there's also another throwaway line about excessive immersion, which just came to me. I don't know at what point Robert Downey Jr. says this, but he's like, I remember when I played. I think it's in this exchange only. When he said, I remember when I played Neil Armstrong in Moonshot. After
Mm.
the shooting was done, they found me in an alley in Burbank trying to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere in a garbage box. I'm like, what?
This is the sequence where they're trying to retrieve
Oh, that's towards the
Scott
end, right? Where
towards
the
the end.
dudes
Yeah,
emerge.
no, where they find him in they find him inside, and he's got Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
There's that, and we haven't even addressed the Tom Cruise scenes, right? We've only spoken about the first one. I think the
Yes,
part, and again, this for me is probably the funniest scene of the movie. Is when Flaming Dragon calls.
to negotiate.
He call Yeah, when they call Rick, and then Rick is still thinking it's about a TiVo discussion, and he's in Les Grossman's office. And Les Grossman like, who is this? And this is the third time that Flaming Dragon dude is asked about it. So it's like, we are Flaming Dragon. And then Tom Cruise is like, Flaming Dragon? Okay. First off, take a step back and literally fuck your own face. They cut to the guy. He's like, what? I don't know what sort of Pan Pacific play you got going here, but Asia Jack is my territory. So you want to make sure that I don't come down on your ass, because otherwise you got to go to the UN and get a binding resolution. Because I'm going to go full scorched earth on your ass, motherfucker. I'll rain an ungodly fucking firestorm upon you.
I will fuck you up!
And then he cuts the call. Find out who that was. I'm like, what?
And it comes to the Flaming Dragon guy just staring at his phone.
that
Oh, dude.
scene, that scene is just. And immediately after that, Rick is like, dude, what the fuck? Like, they have him hostage. They'll kill him. He's like, yeah, it's okay. It'll be a glorious death, this, that. And Bill Hader is brilliant in that scene. He's
Yeah.
just standing next to Les Grossman being the lackey. He's like, wait, and then Les Grossman, like, down the line, in after a respectful amount of time, and Bill Hader's like, way down the line, we're going to file for an insurance claim. And then Bill Hader's like, we probably make more money than we would have lost making this film. And then he says, Rick, you know what's in it for you? A few $1,000,000 and a G5 jet. Play, yeah? Freaking play, yeah? Big dick play, yeah? And then Bill Hader's like, swinging at the knees. And then they start playing low, apple bottom jeans, boots with the fur.
Yeah.
They're both dancing, and Rick is just like, you want me to betray my friend for a G5? A G5 jet. And then they cut the scene there. You don't know what's going to happen and whether he says yes or no. Oof. I mean, I had that 5 to 7 minutes, I have laughed so hard. I think I've grown like a six pack just laughing in that scene. It's just, oh.
It's the first film, the moment, like the one moment in the film that I have laughed at every single time I've watched the movie. The first time I watched it, I laughed so much I started crying because one, it's so out of the blue because you're just like, oh, it's a negotiating call and you expect it to be tense. The way they flip it, especially with how Tom Cruise plays it, you just don't expect it. I had tears in my eyes, and it's still like I don't. It's not the funniest moment in the movie for me right now. I'd probably say the 400 years moment is hands down the funniest moment in the film, or probably one of the funniest moments of all time, because it's so well written and so
Yeah.
well executed.
For 400 years.
Did you?
This character's down.
And the shot, reverse shot with that and Brandon T. Jackson going, what? Because
Yeah,
he
his
can't
reaction, what the fuck? It is too funny. But yeah, I mean, I
and
think
then
first time when I watched it, the impact this scene had was probably unmatched, which is why it's like very vivid in my memory. Like I almost remember his monologue word for word. And I use that opening, whenever have a disagreement with somebody in jest, I've used this oftentimes, right? Like, hey, dude, if that's how you feel, first off, take a step back and literally fuck your own face. Oh, man. It is.
uh,
What
so
what else? What else? And I think that then we move to, oh yeah, the other moment I want to talk about is when they mount a rescue operation to extract Tuck Speedman, and now there are three levels to Robert Downey Jr. He's playing Kirk Lazarus, playing Lincoln Osiris, who's now dressed as a Vietnamese rice farmer. At this
yeah.
point, your brain is on the verge of being frayed, right? Like, what the fuck is happening? And then they start the flaming dragon guys start questioning him, and his story starts to fall apart, and the Tran guy is like, where is your farm? My farm? Here's my farm. I'm a lead
No,
farmer,
I think
motherfucker.
I, I think what he kind of slips up. He's obviously speaking broken Mandarin at that point, and
Yeah.
he initially says the rice field, and he says, "I'm going to go back to my poppy field." Then he's like, "What field?" He's like, "My," and that's when they catch on. And then "What do you farm again?" And then he says, "I'm a lead farmer."
I'm a lead farmer,
Then
motherfucker.
I'm a lead farmer, motherfucker!
Oh man, there's that, and
And
then
this is
there's the whole Apocalypse Now sequence.
not even that. There's even before, yeah, the apocalypse. No, that's Deer Hunter. No, is the gun where he's trying to convince him to leave.
I thought the whole, I mean, there's the whole scene of Ben Stiller taking water, putting it on his face,
Oh, yeah,
watching
that's yeah,
the light and
that's
shadow falling. That is like clear cuts. That's out and out
yeah, that's
film
Kurtz.
cuts.
Yeah, and then also the scene where he's talking to him about asking him to leave and he's refusing to come is that moment where
Ah,
Robert De Niro and the gun
the
sequence from the Deer Hunter.
Russian roulette one. Yeah.
Yes. So is what I thought, and of course, there's another moment which I just realized upon watching where Jack Black stumbles into the camp and he discovers this mound of, I would assume, heroin,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the way it's shot like it's a direct tribute to Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Indiana Jones first discovers the idol and he takes his hat off and he like goes to the side. And if you compare the scenes side by side, obviously put them on screen, it's the same shot, it's from the same angle of how Jack Black is looking at the pile of heroin, compared to how Indy is looking at the idol from Raiders. So there's that,
And
and
then Jack
then
like, don't judge me. Face into it.
and then of course, and through this time, Nick Nolte's character and Danny McBride's character running through the jungle, and Danny McBride has figured out that Nick Nolte is a hoax. He's just a dude who worked on the coastline on the
Yeah.
Coast Guard,
Yeah,
and he has
and
no
he's
hooks for
there's
arms.
that whole bit as well, right? Earlier in the film, where Nick Nolte is like, "I don't know how a gun works. I just know the sound it makes when it takes a life." And then later on, McBride flips it on him. You don't know how a gun works? I think you just know the sound it makes when it says a lie. It is
Like
just
Danny McBride is quietly having a great performance on the side.
yeah, this is like great
Everyone in
early
this
Danny
film,
McBride, right? Yeah, he
yeah.
really brings his A game.
And then you have the part where they run away, and
Hey, what
they're on the
about
helicopter.
the dudes are emerging? That's the whole
Oh yeah, the dude.
where
Of course, we have to do that. Yeah.
Tug Speedman starts calling Lincoln Osiris or Kirk Lazarus's insecurities out, saying you're just covering yourself with layers of your character because you want to hide or you're afraid of who you really are. And it seems to strike a nerve with Kirk Lazarus, and then he starts taking his wig off. He's like, I don't know if I'm Lincoln Osiris or Father O'Malley, like this Irish accent. Honestly, I don't know who I am. And then Jay Baruchel, Kevin Sanderski looks, the insecurities with you guys is off the roof. And then something Jack Black says, so what are we going to do now, Kevin? He's like, fuck it, we'll deal with it later. Just bring him. And then they run,
and,
yeah. And then there's the
and
whole
then they run.
bridge. There's a whole platoon
Yeah,
sequence again.
they're about to escape.
And
He
then the
throws the
kid
child off. Yeah,
on the bridge. He kicks him off the bridge or throws him something, yeah. The child is
something.
hugging his leg. He just picks him like, yeets the child. Like, fuck off, I need to run.
and, and then
Oh my
they
god.
shoot like in direct reference to the first part of the film. They shoot the chopper, and through the jungle, Matthew McConaughey's Rick comes through and throws a fucking TiVo box at the
At the missile.
missile. Yeah, and it explodes. It's like, okay, the TV joke finally came a full circle.
It is. Oh man, I have.
I feel like that's basically
So
the entire
sad.
film. Like you were true to your word. We discussed the entire film.
Pretty much. Very little left.
Okay, so
Sure, we're missing some
yeah,
parts. Sort of obviously the outro with Tom Cruise just dancing on screen too low, which is
of
a
course, yeah.
great way to end a film. And this movie is legend. It's. I think now that we've pretty much covered the entire film in memorable moments, let's quickly go over the themes. I don't think this movie is like super heavy on themes, a lot of which we already
No, not
covered.
at all.
But we should do that. And I don't think I want to do the if X does Y
Yeah,
bit
neither
for
do
this
I.
because this movie is an untouchable. So just
Yeah,
leave it as is. So let's get into the themes. I think we can sort of end it on that note. What are the themes you
cool.
think we should discuss?
Where do we start? So let's probably start with I mean, it tackles the Hollywood industry, right? And basically the the false facade of fame, like just generally what people do to justify their presence in, or rather their wealth, their status, and like you can tend to get lost in it. And a lot of Hollywood can be very posturing. So this movie takes a lot of pokes at that part.
It also calls
And
out the privilege that actors have, right? Actors don't want to
yes,
usually want to draw attention to the fact that, cool, your struggles and all apart. Now that you've made it, you're living a very privileged life. They want to make it look like they're, slumming it out or whatever. This movie, like, hey, fuck off, like you guys are actors. Let's call a spade a spade. So it really shines light on that hypocrisy in the industry.
then I'd say even stereotypes. Of course, we've spoken about this, and I think Hollywood has a history of this, of stereotyping certain characters. Like Al Pacino's characters are written like Tyrese Gibson's characters in Transformers, where he's got
Yeah.
one line summarizing the scene for the rest of the audience, and it's always the black guy who does it. Which
Yeah, it's that sassy black
yeah,
guy who,
yeah.
quippy guy who just has one-liners, which are those
Then
audience hooters kind of lines. There's no
yeah,
depth to those characters, which is exactly
which is
what
quite
they're
yeah,
trying to do
which is
with
a
Al
terrible.
Pacino's character. Yeah.
And you have of course a Lincoln Osiris character where we've spoken about the blackface. I think it's other examples include Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, that is
Unbelievable.
probably the worst example of it.
Yeah. Mrs. Goraichi, which is just he plays a Japanese guy, and
Yeah,
I still can't believe. I think that's one of the few things about Breakfast at Tiffany's that really pisses me off. But I guess it was just a sign of the times, really.
I guess. Yeah.
So a long-standing Hollywood issue where they cast actors um, who are supposed to portray a character of a different ethnicity while overlooking actors who could play that role and are from the same ethnicity. This movie came out in 2009. One of my favorite movies came out in 2010 and is guilty of that, which I will keep bringing up. That is The Social Network. And I don't know how Max Minghella looks Indian. The man does not look he doesn't look closest to any Indian I know. Him playing Divya Narendra is still a joke. Um, I think a lot of war movie tropes, like
Yeah.
you have exaggerated, like
Oliver
tough guy.
Stone must have been like laughing uncomfortably throughout the movie. Like, am I the butt of the joke here?
He's like Captain America in Avengers. I got that reference. So it's
Yeah.
possibly
Yeah.
what he must have been like. And anything else? I feel
I
like we've
think
kind of
I want
covered.
to spend a quick minute on the brilliance of casting Robert Downey Jr. in this role, right? Because up until this
Mm,
point, by and large, he was known as this. He was known as a method actor to a degree himself, although he doesn't like to call himself a method actor. He's known for his immersion in his roles, and so there was a degree of meta-ness there itself to get him to play Kirk
mm,
Lazarus. also up until this point in his career, let's putting the his addiction and legal issues aside, he was known as a serious actor. It comes from
Yeah.
a pedigree. His dad was a director and actor himself. Uh, his early roles were like stuff like Less Than Zero, Chaplin. He was nominated for Chaplin, if I'm remembering it
Yes, 92.
correctly.
Hmm.
So typical biopics. Somebody who's angling for recognition, and to this day, like if you look past his comedic chops, you see an actor who takes his craft seriously, who wants to be.
Hmm.
Sure, he's probably the most biggest commercial actor of the last decade, but deep down, he still is a serious. He takes his craft seriously. He wants to be appreciated for that as well. So that's the persona he had built up until that point, right? And okay, for us, maybe we had seen it after Iron Man, but for global audiences, with the possible exception of maybe Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, where you do see his funnier side, people weren't really privy to that. And
Yeah.
in fact, his previous movie before this was Zodiac, which is like
Yeah.
a mind fuck and a
Hmm.
half. So that's the baggage or that's the impression that Robert Downey Jr. is carrying coming into this film. And given, like we said, the trailers were misleading, people didn't know what it was about. What a bait and switch, right? To get a Robert Downey Jr. Probably like people are like, okay, cool. There's some, and maybe if the only thing you know about the movie is that RDJ is in blackface, you're probably like,
Hmm.
okay, they are taking some huge risk here. This is a serious
Yeah.
actor who's making a huge mistake. And then when you watch the movie, you're like, this was way more genius than anyone could have anticipated, right? And
For sure. Yeah.
for the Oscar knob on the back of it, it was just like cool. This
I
RDJ
think
is back.
I think what the film did, and this is again a BTS thing, where when they tested it for black critics, because they wanted to make sure that before the film even went out, that they were
Mm.
doing the right thing. And I don't know why Ben Stiller the internet's kind of forced him to apologize for parts of it. I don't think he should apologize for any of it, because what he did was a sharp take uh, on a real issue that plagued the industry for several years, and I've spoken about why and where as well. So I think for the majority, it remains one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best performances. Yes, he will, for better or worse, be always remembered as Tony Stark, because he really became that character in the
Yeah.
2010s. Like I was in a movie theater for Endgame, and there were people sobbing into their chairs. It was pure hysteria. So, and to elicit that reaction, it's like you must truly ascend to a different strata of fame. But you take that out, take the Tony Stark character out. He's terrific in Oppenheimer, as Strauss, as Lieutenant Strauss, and in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is one of my favorite films. So I'm a big Shane Black movie fan.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see him even though I love The Nice Guys, it'd be very interesting to see how he would have done in one of those as maybe in Russell Crowe's character. Even though that is another great film. If you haven't checked out, I must highly recommend that you do. But yeah, I'm rambling now. I think this is possibly one of RDJ's best performances, and
Yeah, in
it,
fact,
in my opinion, will
this
stand the
is a
test of
hot
time.
take.
Yeah. Mhm.
It is RDJ's best performance. I think the hotter take I have is this is Tom Cruise's best performance. Tom Cruise is a
Oh,
superstar. He has billions of dollars business that his movies have done. I have never liked Tom Cruise in any movie more than I've liked him in this movie.
I
Seeing
think
him in this role
like
almost
yeah,
makes me want to forget his whole Scientology bullshit. I'm like, fuck it, dude. This guy is an entertainer out and out.
and then Fallout came 10 years later. We're like, okay, fine.
Yeah, yeah, fair. No, I mean that's what it is a hot
Yeah.
take. I don't know.
Hmm.
If you ask
I
me
don't know. I
on
think
any random day, I wouldn't say this. But if you ask me immediately after I've seen a Les Grossman scene, I'm like, yeah, dude, this was peak Tom Cruise.
fair enough. I mean, I still think Tom Cruise's best performance is Magnolia. Right now, it's Magnolia. Maybe because I'm on a PTA kick. I think
Mhm.
no other director managed to elicit a performance out of Tom Cruise the way Magnolia did. Yes, he is good in Born on the 4th of July, even if it's slightly over the top at times.
Yeah, it's
For
a
Few
little
Good Men,
hammy,
he's
but
good. Yeah, I think even The Firm. I mean, he's in a bit. He's a good actor, but I think in terms of a comedic turn, this is up there with the best.
this is something else. But
Mm.
I don't know what else. What else did I want to talk about? I think broadly we've covered all of it. To address the other controversy, I want to ask you. I know the fact that they used the word retard in the film became
Hmm.
controversial, and the whole idea of poking fun at the expense of mentally challenged people. But if I'm not mistaken, obviously the terminology for mentally challenged people has been evolving. I'm not sure in
Yes.
2008 whether retard was an acceptable term or not. If it was, then I feel the error is a lot less egregious. We've gone. It's been a whole. Not to sound insensitive, but there's been a whole merry-go-round of terms, right? We've gone from mentally handicapped to retarded to mentally challenged to differently able to specially able. At this point, honestly, I don't know what the right.
No, I mean definitely. I think see, the way the word was thrown around in the early late mid to like late 2000s was like everywhere, right? I mean, and we grew up in Indian schools. It was quite commonplace, and I don't think any one of us really sat down and listened to it. But now I think with the way the words have evolved, it's very much the one thing. Given how terminology is involved, I think it's the one thing that you could probably accuse this movie of holding back. Not because it's just a thing. Uh, it's just an issue with it being a time sensitive thing, right? Because at the time it was widely accepted to say it without consequence. Now I feel like even while you were like having
I
conversations
guess,
about
but
it, I think
I
not this.
mean, words only have the weightage that you collectively decide to give them, right? I mean,
Yeah, you correct,
I don't
you
know.
do. But I guess it's like I believe most public platforms shun the use of it.
Mm.
Especially I know YouTube has an issue with it. So
Mm.
yeah, I guess it's just one of those things that have just aged out. Is It's like it's one of the few things we've left behind. So I guess it is what it is.
It makes signing your mails off very hard. I've had a couple of typos where I've ended up writing warm retards Rohit Rao instead of because T and G are right next to each other. This one time I was like just before hitting send, I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
You can just sign it, like set up an auto sign.
No, this was before I was
Hmm.
wiser, advised up to
Hmm.
it. Early
My God,
days.
Rohit. But yeah, okay. I guess on that note,
Surely we can do better, but okay, cool. Warm regards, warm retards.
uh,
I don't know what that means. But yeah, folks,
mm,
if you haven't watched this movie, please do. Please watch it right away. Uh, Ideally, I would recommend, again, this is just my personal opinion, maybe sit back with a drink or something that, chemically alters you. I think, to me at least, that adds to the fun because
mhm.
I don't know, I just find a newfound appreciation for this movie when I'm in specific states, but it is something else.
Yeah, it's probably one of the best comedies to come out of Hollywood in the last couple of years, and hopefully we're still talking about it in good stead for
Yeah.
years to come. I think that's the episode. If you haven't, if you've gotten so far, and if you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed, don't be a dickhead. Like, follow, subscribe. It really helps the channel.
No. If you
We
if
are.
you if you haven't liked, followed, or subscribed, take a step back.
And literally fuck your own face!